Yeah, you heard that right. I never planned revenge. I never planned a fight. And honestly, I didn't think I had it in me. But when she bulldozed my ancient ranch fence, the one my grandfather built with his own hands, when she laughed in my face and said the HOA owns this land now, I felt something break inside me. And the moment she stepped onto my property again, screaming my name like I was her servant, I knew exactly what was coming next. Because she didn't see what I saw behind her. She didn't hear the ground shake. She didn't know the horses were already running. And when she finally turned around, everything changed. Hey everyone. Welcome back to HOA Stories, the place where suburban madness meets justice. My name is Mark. I'm a ranch mechanic living on the far edge of a town that somehow still has an HOA breathing down everyone's neck. If you hate power-hungry HOAs, if you stand against bullies, write BOOO HOA in the comments right now. Prove you're one of us. And share this video with anyone who ever suffered because of an HOA. Alright? Let me take you into the moment where everything started. The day Karen tried to claim my ranch like she owned it. I remember that morning like it's carved into the dirt of my land. Hot sun. Dry wind. And the same dusty road where no HOA had ever dared to drive before. At least, not until Karen showed up. I was fixing a loose hinge on the barn door. Minding my own damn business. When I heard tires rolling over gravel, slow, heavy. Like someone wanted a dramatic entrance. I turned around. And there she was. Karen. The self-appointed queen of our HOA. A woman who believed rules were more important than oxygen. She stepped out of her shiny SUV, wearing her sunglasses like she was inspecting a crime scene. Her hair all sprayed up. Her lips tight enough to crack. Mark, she said. Not a greeting. Not a hello. Just my name, like I already did something wrong. I wiped my hands on my jeans. What brings you out here? Pretty far from your kingdom, ain't it? She didn't appreciate the joke. Karen never does. This fence, she said, pointing her perfect little finger at my old ranch fence. The HOA has determined it's non-compliant. I blinked. Slow. Confused. Non-compliant. It's a ranch fence, Karen. It's older than you, older than the HOA, older than the damned highway out there. She shrugged. That same useless shrug people do when they hold power but no soul. It blocks the community's visual flow, she said. As HOA president, I'm ordering it to be removed immediately. I laughed. I actually laughed. I thought it was one of her stupid warnings again. But she didn't laugh. She didn't smile. She just stared at me like a hawk who lost patience. You have until noon tomorrow, she said. Or we'll handle it ourselves. She turned. Walked back to her SUV. And drove off like she owned the whole horizon. I stood there for a long time. Just breathing. Trying to calm the heat rising in my chest. See, that fence wasn't just wood. It was memory. It was blood. It was my family. My grandfather built it with his own hands. Every post hammered in during a drought year. Every rail carved with the same knife he carried his whole life. And Karen wanted it gone. Because it ruined visual flow. By sunset, I already knew she wasn't bluffing. Because people like her never bluff. They just destroy. That night, I stayed awake in the barn with the horses. Running my hands along the old fence rails. Feeling the rough wood. Smelling the dust. Listening to the night sounds. It was quiet. Peaceful. My land always is at night. But I had this strange feeling. Like the land itself was waiting for something. Like something was about to shift. And damn. I was right. Because the next morning, before I had coffee, before I even stepped outside, I heard it. Engines. Multiple engines. Rolling in fast. I rushed out. And my heart stopped mid-beat. 3 HOA trucks. Big ones. With orange safety lights and hired contractors. Karen stepped out again. Holding papers. Smiling this time. Which somehow made it worse. "Good morning, Mark," she said. "We'll take it from here." I shouted. I yelled. I told them all to get the hell off my property. But she waved the paper at me. A fake HOA violation order. One she typed herself. Not even signed by the board. "I have authority," she said. She didn't. But Karen never cared about the rules she forced on everyone else. Before I could stop them, the contractors turned on the bulldozer. That sound. Metal teeth grinding. Engine roaring. Dirt splitting apart. It hit the fence. Hard. And in one ugly push, my grandfather's fence collapsed. Dust exploded everywhere. Wood splintered. History shattered. I just stood there. My hands shaking. My jaw locked. Eyes burning. Karen walked up beside me. Close enough for me to smell her perfume. Close enough to hear her whisper. "You should have listened, Mark." She smiled. Turned. And walked away like she just stepped out of a spa. I didn't say a word. Not a threat. Not a curse. Nothing. But something inside me clicked. Something cold. Something quiet. And the horses felt it too. The herd was restless. Stomping. Snorting. Shuffling with that wild instinct that senses anger. Fear. Revenge. I walked toward them. Slow. My boots sinking in the dirt. Their eyes followed me. Every single one. These weren't pets. They weren't tamed. They were descendants of the Mustangs that roamed here long before fences, or HOAs, or Karens. I ran my hand along the lead mare. She snorted. Tilted her head. As if she already knew what I wanted. And the crazy thing is, I didn't tell them anything. Horses don't need orders. They feel energy. They feel intention. And mine was loud. Very loud. By noon, the HOA trucks were still there. Karen still barking at someone. Trying to act important. That's when the ground trembled. Not much. Just enough to make dust lift off the road. Karen didn't notice. Of course she didn't. But I did. And when I turned toward the herd, I felt the surge go through me. They were coming. Fast. Hard. Unified. Horses don't hesitate. They don't second guess. They move like a storm. I didn't release them. I didn't command them. I just opened the path. And nature did the rest. When Karen finally turned, when she saw the dust cloud, her face froze. Her jaw dropped. Her hands flapped like broken wings. She screamed my name. But I didn't move. I just watched. Calm. Quiet. Almost peaceful. Because for once, for the first time ever, Karen wasn't in control. And she was about to learn what happens when you disrespect a ranch. And its history. And its people. So let me ask you something. Backhand index pointing right, if someone destroyed something your grandparents built, what would you do? I didn't move. Not even an inch. I just stood there in the dust and heat. Watching Karen's perfect suburban life fall apart in slow motion. Her mouth open like she wanted to scream again. But no sound came out. Just this weird, high-pitched squeak. Like someone stepped on a rubber duck. Behind her, the ground shook harder. The horses were almost at full speed now. Their hooves pounding like drums. Dust clouds rising behind them like smoke. Karen spun around. her whole body stiff. Then she ran. Not light job ran. Not fitness mom ran. No. She ran like her soul was trying to evacuate her body. Her designer shoes kicked up dirt. Her hair-sprayed helmet came apart like someone ripped Velcro. Her blouse clung to her arms as she twisted and stumbled and tried not to die. And honestly, I shouldn't laugh. But damn. It was impossible not to. The contractors dove out of the way. One of them actually screamed. Another tried to climb into the bulldozer to hide. Karen didn't care about any of them. She didn't even look back. She just pumped her arms and ran toward the open fence gap. The same gap she created when she destroyed my grandfather's fence. Oh, the irony. So beautiful. So poetic. So HOA. I leaned on a fence post. Arms crossed. Watching everything unfold like a live-action cartoon. But here's the thing. The horses weren't chasing her. Not intentionally anyway. They were running toward the open land. Toward the road. Toward freedom. Karen just happened to be the idiot standing in the middle of their path. She tripped once. Almost face-planted. Caught herself. Then looked back and shrieked again. My God. Somebody do something. The contractors didn't move. One yelled. Lady. They're horses. What the hell do you want us to do? She screamed louder. She always screamed louder. It's her main skill. Meanwhile, the lead mare slowed for half a second as she approached Karen. Not to attack. Not to hurt her. Just to look at her. A wild horse. A true wild spirit. Locking eyes with the biggest suburban tyrant I've ever known. Karen froze. She held her breath. Her hands shaking like crazy. Then, the mare snorted. A huge, angry blast of air. Right in Karen's face. Karen screamed like she met Satan himself. And ran again. I swear. I've seen people run from tornadoes. From cops. From ex-wives. But I have never, ever, seen someone run like a terrified HOA president. She bolted toward the right side of the ranch. Toward the old cattle gate. Her arms flapping. Her mouth open. Her knees high like she was trying to sprint in quicksand. The horses split around her. Like water around a rock. Dust blasting up behind them. Their bodies brushing past her close enough to make her scream every 5 seconds. One horse's tail slapped her in the face. She almost fell. But somehow kept running. I started walking toward her. Slow. Calm. Boots kicking little clouds of dirt. Not rushing. Just watching. When I got close enough, I shouted. Karen! What happened to your HOA authority? She looked back at me. Eyes huge. Mascara streaking down her cheeks. Hair destroyed. Sweat everywhere. This is illegal, she screeched. I lifted an eyebrow. Oh? Like bulldozing my fence? That was an HOA order, she yelled. Barely catching her breath. I shrugged. So is this. She blinked. Confused. What? I pointed behind her. The horses still thundering across the open land. It's called Natural Ranch Activity. Section 14, Paragraph 2. You know. The same HOA booklet you wave in everyone's face. She didn't respond. Her brain was too fried to argue. One contractor finally shouted from far away. Ma'am. Just stop running. They're not chasing you. Karen screamed back. Yes, they are. You idiots. I covered my mouth to stop myself from laughing. Didn't work. I burst out laughing so hard I had to lean on my knee. And that made her rage even more. You think this is funny, Mark? You think unleashing wild animals on HOA leadership is a joke? I grinned. Pretty good joke, yeah. She stomped toward me. Still panting. Still shaking. Still covered in dust. You're done, she snarled. You're finished in this community. The HOA will bury you. Karen, I said quietly. This is a ranch. She blinked. What? I stepped closer. Close enough for her to see I wasn't joking. Close enough for her to feel how calm I was. This ranch was here before you. Before the HOA. Before all these new houses. Before the highway. Before your rules. Before your paperwork. Before all of it. She swallowed. Hard. This land doesn't care about your HOA, I said. The horses don't care. The dust doesn't care. And I sure as hell don't care. She opened her mouth. But nothing came out. For the first time since I met her. Karen was actually speechless. Behind us. The last horse broke into a fast trot. Then slowed. Then wandered off into the pasture. The run was over. Just a natural herd run. Nothing more. But to Karen, it was the apocalypse. She looked around. Still breathing like she sprinted a marathon. Her clothes covered in dirt. Her perfect suburban image shattered. Then she pointed one shaky finger at me. You, she whispered. This isn't over. Then she stormed off. Straight to her SUV. Kicked the door shut. And drove away like she was fleeing a serial killer. The contractors followed. Some shaking their heads. Some laughing. One of them tipped his hat to me. Hell of a morning, man. Yeah. Hell of a morning indeed. But the quiet after they left. It wasn't peaceful. It felt wrong. Like someone lit a fuse. One I couldn't see. But could definitely feel burning. Karen wasn't the type to accept humiliation. Not even by nature. Not even by her own stupidity. And something in her eyes. Right before she left. Told me she wasn't done. Not even close. I walked back to the broken fence. Touched the splintered wood. And let out a slow breath. I knew what was coming. Not the horses. Not the dust. Not the running. Something worse. Something colder. Karen was going to strike back. And I had no idea how far she would go. But let me ask you something. Backhand index pointing right, if someone this petty swore revenge on you, would you fight back or stay quiet? I stood there in the quiet. A quiet that didn't feel peaceful at all. A quiet that felt like the air itself was holding its breath. The horses had already settled. Dust floating around them like smoke from a slow-burning fire. The sun was higher now. Sharp. Hot. Harsh. But my mind wasn't on the heat. Or the fence. Or the mess left behind. My mind was on her. Karen. That look she gave me before driving off. It wasn't fear. It wasn't embarrassment. It was something colder. Something calculating. Something dangerous. When someone like Karen vows revenge, they don't forget. They don't move on. They don't get bored. No. They plan. They plot. They gather every little rule in their weapon drawer. And then they come back swinging. And I knew. I just knew. She was already cooking up something. I walked toward the barn. Boots crunching over broken splinters of the old fence. Every crack of wood felt like a punch in my chest. That fence wasn't just a boundary. It was history. It was family. It was my grandfather's sweat carved into the land. Now it was gone. Flattened. Ripped out. Destroyed by an HOA president who cared more about visual flow than the human beings living here. Inside the barn. The smell of hay and warm animals wrapped around me. Comforting in a way nothing else was at that moment. The lead mare lifted her head. Eyes calm. Almost proud. Like she knew she defended her land better than any human ever could. I stroked her neck, feeling the rise and fall of her breath. "Good girl," I whispered. "Hell of a run." She nudged my shoulder gently, like she understood more than a horse should. I sat on an overturned bucket, letting my mind race, trying to calculate what Karen would do next. She was humiliated, covered in dust, screaming in front of contractors, running like a cartoon character. Her ego couldn't handle that. Not a chance. And when egos break, people do stupid things. That's when my phone buzzed. A vibration I didn't expect. Didn't want. Didn't need. I pulled it from my pocket. One new message. Unknown number. But I knew who it was. Had to be. I opened it. And my stomach clenched. A single line. HOA emergency meeting tonight. Mandatory. Mandatory. For a ranch that, technically, sits outside HOA jurisdiction. But Karen never cared about technicalities. My thumbs hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to reply something rude. Something sarcastic. Something that would make her blood pressure explode. But something stopped me. Something quiet. Something dark. Something telling me, let her play her little game. Because I wasn't scared. Not of her. Not of her HOA army. Not of whatever plan she thought she had. I knew my land. My rights. My history. She had paperwork. I had the truth. So I just locked my phone, slid it back into my pocket, and exhaled slowly. The day dragged on. Heat rising off the dirt. Insects buzzing. The ranch falling strangely still. Every time I looked at the broken fence, a new anger bubbled inside me. Not loud. Not wild. Just this heavy anger. The kind that sits in your bones. I walked the property line. My boots kicking dust. My mind running faster than my legs. Was she going to find me? Claim the land? Call the county? Try to take the horses? Try to get me evicted? Karen wasn't predictable. That was the worst part. She always surprised people. Always went further than anyone expected. That evening, right before sunset, something caught my eye. A black SUV. Slowly rolling down the dirt road toward my ranch. Not Karen's. Karen drove a shiny white one. This one was darker. Cleaner. Government clean. My jaw tightened. My heart slowed. No way. No damn way. The SUV stopped near the busted fence. The driver door opened. And a tall man stepped out. Suit. Tie. Sunglasses. Hair slicked back. I stared. He stared back. Neither of us moving. Then he walked toward me. Smooth. Professional. Silent steps. Only one type of person moves like that. Evening, he said. Voice calm. Measured. Official. I didn't answer. Not yet. He reached into his coat. Slow. Careful. And pulled out a badge. County Inspector. My gut twisted again. Not fear. Not panic. Just anger. Karen called the county. Of course she did. She couldn't win with rules. Couldn't win with fences. So she brought bigger weapons. The man raised the badge slightly. I received a report about uncontrolled wildlife activity and potential endangerment of a community official. I almost laughed. A community official? Karen? Jesus. But I held the laugh back. Barely. That true? He asked. One eyebrow up. I crossed my arms. My horses ran. That's what horses do. And Karen ran too, that's what she does. He didn't smile. Didn't react. Just wrote something on his clipboard. Clipboard. Always a bad sign. He walked the property line. Inspecting the broken fence. The dirt. The tire tracks. The splintered rails. He didn't say a word. Just walked. Looked. Wrote. I followed. Hands in pockets. Jaw tight. Finally he stopped. Turned toward me. Expression unreadable. Based on what I'm seeing, he said. There's no violation here. The land is zone ranch. The animals are natural livestock. The fence destruction appears to be caused by outside parties. He paused. Tilted his head. You didn't do this to yourself, did you? No, I said. Voice flat. Firm. True. He wrote one final note. Then closed the clipboard. I'll file the report as property damage by unauthorized HOA action, he said. Shouldn't be trouble for you. But I suggest you attend their meeting tonight. They might escalate. My blood ran cold for a second. Not from fear. But from fury. Escalate? What the hell else could they do? Burn the barn? Confiscate the horses? Fine me for breathing too loud? The inspector looked at me one last time. A long look. Like he knew something I didn't. Be careful, he said quietly. HOA presidents with bruised egos usually become dangerous. Then he walked back to the SUV. Started the engine. Rolled away. Dust rising behind him until he disappeared over the road. I stood there. Hands on my hips. Breathing slow. Trying to understand why every bone in my body was tense. Dangerous. He said. Dangerous how? Dangerous how far? Dangerous how soon? And that's when I saw it. A drone. Flying above my ranch. Buzzing like a mosquito with a camera. I didn't need to guess who was controlling it. Karen. Of course. Karen couldn't help herself. She was watching. Recording. Collecting evidence. Preparing something. Something big. The horses shifted restlessly again. Sensing my tension. Sensing the strange energy in the air. Sensing the storm coming. I walked back to the barn. Closed the doors. Locked them. Because suddenly, my safe little ranch didn't feel safe anymore. The HOA meeting was only 2 hours away. And I had no idea what Karen would pull. But I knew one thing for damn sure. She wasn't done. Not even close. So let me ask you something. Backhand index pointing right, if your enemy started spying on you with a drone, would you confront them or let them dig their own grave? The next morning hit different. Not quiet. Not calm. Not normal. It felt like the ranch itself was holding its breath. And I soon found out why. The sunrise that didn't feel like a sunrise. I woke up before dawn, something inside me restless, unsettled. The horses were already awake, pacing around the far pasture. Their ears were pinned back. Their tails flicking in irritation. Animals know before humans do. They sense trouble before we even smell it. So when Shadow, my fastest horse, let out a sharp, warning neigh, I knew we had company. A car on my private road. Dust kicked up on the long driveway. A car approached slowly, headlights cutting through the faint orange of sunrise. Not HOA Karen's SUV. Not Dave's beat-up pickup. Not anyone I recognized. The car stopped exactly 20 feet from my fence. The engine shut off. Door opened. And out stepped a tall man in a dark jacket, clipboard in one hand, a rolled-up map in the other. Not law enforcement. Not county folks. Someone worse. He walked right up to my gate like he owned the place. Morning, he said casually. Too casually. The kind of tone full of fake confidence. I stared at him. Who the hell are you? He smiled politely. Like he'd practiced it in a mirror. My name is Rutherford Hayes. I'm here on behalf of the Meadow Point Homeowners Association. I blinked. I've never seen you at a meeting. He stepped closer. That's because I'm not a board member. I'm what the HOA hires when their normal tactics stop working. The way he said that? Cold. Like an executioner sharpening his axe. The HOA specialist. He unrolled the map on my fence. It was an aerial layout of my ranch. But marked with red circles. Paths. Gates. Fence lines. Water sources. Barn access. And paths where horses could escape or be driven. He'd studied my ranch. Your HOA has decided your continued noncompliance is a liability, he said calmly, as if discussing weather. I almost laughed. A liability? For owning horses on a ranch? Not horses, he corrected. Herd animals. Unregulated. Potentially destructive. He tapped the map like he was giving a presentation. The HOA wants to classify your horses as livestock, not pets. If they succeed, they'll have legal grounds to. Stop, I snapped. This land is county zone for ranching. HOA rules don't apply. He smiled again. That same rehearsed, corporate smile. The HOA believes they've found a way around that. I felt my jaw tighten. How? He slid an envelope across the fence. I didn't touch it. Inside, he said, is a petition Karen and the board have drafted. If they get signatures from just 11 homeowners, they can vote to annex your road. I cut him off. Annex? My road isn't part of their jurisdiction. For now, he said. The silence after that was heavy. Thick. Dangerous. I finally spoke. So you're the HOA's attack dog? He didn't flinch. I prefer the term specialist in compliance escalation. Of course he did. And then, a sound I didn't want to hear. Behind us, Shadow whinnied loudly. A warning. A territorial challenge. The herd moved behind me like a living wall. Protective. Alert. Ready. Rutherford Hayes watched them with a strange curiosity. You know, he said softly, animals react to human energy. They're very intuitive. They don't like you, I said flatly. He gave a tiny nod. That's because they sense a shift coming. I stepped forward. There's no shift. There's no annex. There's no compliance escalation. You're trespassing on private ranch property. Turn your car around and leave. He didn't move. Instead, he reached into his jacket. My fist clenched. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a stack of papers. Whether you cooperate or not, he said, the HOA intends to pursue this. I'm offering you the easy path. And what's the easy path? I asked. Relocate your horses within 14 days. I laughed. Not because it was funny. But because it was insane. You think I'm moving 23 horses out of a ranch my family built with their hands, because Karen is scared of hoof prints? Rutherford closed the folder. Not scared, he said. Strategic. The real reason. Something in his tone shifted. Just slightly. Enough for me to pick up on it. This isn't about horses, I said slowly. This is about land. He paused, just long enough to confirm I was right. The HOA doesn't care about aesthetics. Or fences. Or rules. They care about control. Expansion. Money. And ranch land? Real ranch land? That's prime territory. Rutherford finally spoke. The board believes your property will be more useful if repurposed. Repurposed? I repeated. For what? He looked me dead in the eyes. Housing development. Phase 4. My stomach dropped. A development. On my land. Land they didn't own. Land they couldn't even legally touch. Unless they changed the zoning. Unless they annexed the road. Unless they eliminated the horses and classified the ranch as unused. It all clicked. All of it. Karen's harassment. Dave's fake compliance reports. The sneaky nighttime visits. The pressure. The fines. The threats. They never cared about the horses. They wanted my land. The ranch responds. Shadow let out a thunderous neigh. The herd surged forward a few steps, hooves pounding, dust rising. Rutherford stepped back for the first time. They won't hurt you, I said. Not unless you cross a line. He cleared his throat. I'll consider this visit concluded. He turned, walked back to his car, and opened the door. But before getting inside, he said one last thing. 14 days. After that, the HOA proceeds with Phase 1. The car started. Backed up. Drove away. I watched until it disappeared behind the ridge. My hands shook. Not from fear. From fury. Because now, I finally understood the truth. They weren't trying to control me. They were trying to erase me. And if the HOA wanted a fight, they were about to get one. A real one. Because this wasn't about compliance anymore. This was about survival. My land. My legacy. My horses. My life. And I wasn't losing any of them. Not to Karen. Not to the board. Not to their specialist. Not to anyone. Night on a ranch is supposed to be peaceful. Stars overhead. Cool wind moving through the grass. Crickets. Silence. But not tonight. Tonight felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Even the horses sensed it. Shadow stood by the gate, ears perked, nostrils flaring. The herd clustered together instead of spreading across the pasture. Every instinct in their bodies was whispering the same thing mine was. Something's coming. The warning I didn't expect. Around 9:40 p.m., I was repairing a loose board near the north fence when my phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. They're coming tonight. Get ready. No name. No context. Just that. I scanned the dark horizon, heart pounding. Who's coming? Another message arrived instantly, like whoever it was had been waiting with their thumbs above the screen. The HOA specialist. Not alone. My blood went cold. Rutherford Hayes. Compliance escalation specialist. Corporate mercenary for HOA boards. But what did not alone mean? More board members? Security? Contractors? Or worse? People who didn't care about laws at all? I typed back. Who is this? No reply. My horses shifted nervously behind me. Shadow pawed at the dirt, impatient. Whoever sent that text. They weren't lying. Headlights on the ridge. At exactly 10:03 p.m., Shadow let out a sharp neigh. I turned. And saw them. 3 sets of headlights cresting the ridge. Not fast. Slow. Controlled. Purposeful. They weren't lost. They weren't confused. They were coming exactly to me. And not through the public road. They were cutting across the old service path. A path only ranchers and county workers ever used. Which meant they'd been here before. Likely scouting. Likely planning. My jaw tightened. The truck stopped 200 feet from my gate. Engines cut off. Doors opened. And out stepped Rutherford. Dressed in the same dark jacket. Same clipboard. Same emptiness in his expression. But tonight, he wasn't alone. 3 other men got out after him. All wearing reflective vests. All carrying equipment cases. Evening, Rutherford called casually, as if we were having a barbecue. What the hell do you think you're doing on my property at night? I shouted. He smiled. That same cold, polished, corporate smile. We're conducting a livestock hazard evaluation. I laughed once. Short. Disbelieving. At night? Horses behave differently at night, he said. To assess danger properly, we need to observe them in all conditions. Danger? I repeated. To who? He opened his clipboard. To the community. I took a step forward. You have no legal right to be here. Actually, he said, we do. One of the men snapped a photo of my barn. Another took video footage of the horses. The third was unrolling some kind of portable fencing equipment. I stepped closer to Rutherford. You bring one more piece of equipment onto my land, I said, and I swear. He cut me off. Threats are unnecessary. We're simply documenting a potential hazard. A hazard? I barked. You mean my horse is eating grass and living peacefully? He didn't blink. Herd animals can damage property. Injure neighbors. Cause traffic incidents. I stepped right up to him. We're on a ranch. In the middle of 400 acres. There are no neighbors. No traffic. No damage. He shrugged. Interpretation varies. When they push too far. Behind me, a loud metallic clank echoed. I spun around. One of the HOA contractors had placed a portable temporary barrier fence along my pasture line. They were marking boundaries. Creating evidence. Building a case. They weren't inspecting. They were staging. Shadow reared up, agitated, hooves slicing the air. The herd scattered slightly, forming a protective ring. I ran toward the worker. "You put that fence down, right now." The man didn't even look at me. "Procedure," he muttered. I kicked the metal stand. It toppled. He stepped back, startled. Rutherford raised his voice. "Touching our equipment is grounds for an escalation notice." I turned back at him. "You're trespassing. That's grounds for removal." His smile vanished. "We warned you," he said quietly. "You've ignored every notice. Every request. Every attempt at compliance." He stepped closer. "You leave us no choice." I felt the anger rising in my chest. "No choice for what?" He finally said it. "Forcible removal of non-compliant livestock." For a moment, I thought I misheard. "Livestock?" I said slowly. "You mean my horses?" Rutherford nodded calmly. "Yes." I stared at him. "You're not taking my horses," I said. "My horses don't leave this ranch. Not one. Not ever." He tilted his head. "We'll see." The standoff breaks. Another contractor reached toward Shadow with a long measuring stick. Shadow bolted toward him, stomping the ground inches from the man's foot. The worker stumbled back, panicked. Rutherford's tone sharpened. "Control your animals." "They are controlled," I snapped. "You provoke them, that's on you." He signaled to the workers. "Collect all footage and let's wrap." They gathered their equipment, backing away. But not because they were afraid. Because they'd gotten exactly what they came for. Footage of horses agitated. Workers in danger. Temporary fences attacked. Alleged aggression. A rancher interfering with an inspection. All lies. All staged. All usable in court. Rutherford headed toward his truck. "This concludes tonight's evaluation." "This isn't over," I warned. He paused halfway into the truck, turning slightly. "Oh, I know. But next time. It won't be an inspection." He closed the door. The trucks drove off into the darkness. The ranch fell quiet again. Too quiet. Shadow pressed his head against my shoulder, trembling. And that's when I realized. Tonight wasn't the attack. It was the setup. Whatever the HOA had planned next. It would be bigger. Stronger. More dangerous. And they wouldn't be coming with clipboards next time. They'd be coming with force. I barely slept after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those headlights again. Those trucks. Those fake inspectors. That cold smile on Rutherford's face. Shadow didn't sleep either. He stayed near my porch till sunrise. Like he was guarding me. Or warning me. Or both. Something had shifted. Something big. And deep down, I knew the HOA wasn't finished. They were just getting warmed up. The letter that changed everything. At 7:12 a.m., I heard tires crunching on gravel. A small white sedan stopped at my gate. Not a truck. Not a sheriff. Not a contractor. A courier. He stepped out, holding a thick sealed envelope. Not the usual flimsy HOA notice. This thing looked like a lawsuit in paper form. "Delivery for the ranch owner," he said. "That's me." I signed. He left without another word. I opened the envelope on the spot. The first page hit me like a punch. Mandatory livestock removal order. Effective immediately. I blinked hard. Read it again. Mandatory. Livestock. Removal. They were actually trying to take my horses. Not a fine. Not a warning. Not a request. A full removal order. My stomach twisted. The second page was worse. Failure to comply will result in property seizure. Monetary penalties. Forced relocation. An HOA legal enforcement action. Forced relocation. They were threatening to push me off my own ranch. I flipped to the last page. At the bottom was a signature. Rutherford Hayes. Compliancy Escalation Division. Pine Ridge HOA. I crushed the paper in my fist. "You messed with the wrong ranch, Rutherford." The call from the one person I didn't expect. Before I could even walk back to the porch, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. I answered. A woman spoke quietly. "You got the letter, didn't you?" "Who is this?" "You don't know me," she whispered. "But I used to work for them." "The HOA?" "No," she said. "Worse. For the firm behind them. My breath caught. What firm? You really want to know? She hesitated. I'll tell you this much. Rutherford isn't just some HOA guy. He's hired. Hired by who? She spoke slowly, choosing each word like it weighed a ton. By people who want your land. My grip on the phone tightened. What do they want my land for? She lowered her voice further. That ranch sits on a zone flagged for commercial development. They can't build unless you leave. You're the last piece on the board. My heart pounded. So all the HOA drama, the horses, the inspections, the violations, everything. Engineered, she cut in. To push you out. To make your life hell. To break you. I swallowed hard. Why are you helping me? Because I watched them ruin enough families. I quit. I couldn't keep doing it. Her voice cracked slightly. You need to be ready. They're planning something. What something? I don't know the details, but I heard one thing. They won't wait for you to comply. They'll act on their own. My jaw clenched. Let them try. You don't understand, she said. Once they escalate, you're dealing with specialists, not board members. I'm not afraid. You should be, she whispered. Then the call ended. When they cut the power. I walked back toward the barn, mind spinning. Then, boom. A loud pop. The entire ranch went dark. Every light. Every outlet. Every system. Dead. What the? I sprinted to the breaker panel. Not tripped. Not damaged. Clean cut. Someone had severed the power cable. Shadow whinnied loudly, pacing in panic. The herd shifted nervously. Horses feel danger before humans do. And right then. They felt plenty. I ran outside, scanning the perimeter. That's when I saw it. A black SUV parked 500 yards away, behind the old windmill. Engine running. No headlights. Just sitting there. Watching. Waiting. I stepped toward it. The SUV backed away slowly. Then disappeared behind the ridge. My chest tightened. They weren't hiding anymore. They wanted me to know they were here. The safety report you'd expect from a movie villain. Before I could even react, another truck pulled up, this one marked Hazard Risk Response Division. 2 men got out. Both wearing body armor vests. Both carrying tablets and long metal poles with red laser measuring tips. One nodded at me. Morning. We're here to complete the emergency hazard assessment. There's no emergency, I snapped. According to your HOA, he said, there is. The other man scanned Shadow with his laser tool. Shadow stepped back, snorting angrily. Distance anxiety, the man said, typing notes. He scanned the herd. Unpredictable group movement, he added. He turned to me. These animals are exhibiting signs of pose-aggressive displacement. Pose what? He didn't blink. Legally classified as hazardous behavior. I stared at him. You're inventing words. Sir, he said calmly, we don't invent. We document. I stepped forward. You're staging evidence. The first man closed his tablet. No, sir. We're confirming what your HOA already suspected. And what's that? They looked at each other. Then one of them said. That these animals need to be removed immediately. My fists clenched. Get off my property. They didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't argue. They simply stared at me. Long enough to let me know they weren't afraid. Then the first one said. We'll be back with the removal team. They climbed into their truck. Drove off without hurry. Without fear. Without doubt. Because in their minds, they thought they'd already won. The decision that would change everything. I leaned against the fence, breathing hard. My horses gathered around me. Shadow stood closest, eyes locked on the ridge where the SUV had been. He nudged my chest twice. Like he was asking something. Or offering something. And that's when it hit me. They want to take the horses. But the horses might be my only chance. They weren't tools. They weren't victims. They were my family. My allies. My defenders. If the HOA was coming with force, then I needed to be ready with something they weren't expecting. Something powerful. Something fast. Something unstoppable. A plan formed in my head. A wild plan. A risky plan. A plan that could blow this whole war open. I looked at Shadow. You ready to fight back? I whispered. He nodded his head once. Like he understood every word. And maybe he did. Because tonight, the HOA wasn't the only side preparing for battle. The sun died behind the hills like it didn't want to see what was coming. The sky turned a deep red. Almost warning me. Almost whispering. Get ready. Shadow stood beside me at the gate. Silent. Focused. Not moving unless I moved. The herd stood behind him, tight, alert, watching the perimeter like trained guards. They knew tonight was different. The air felt tight. The wind tasted metallic. The ground felt like it was holding its breath. And I felt it too. This wasn't a visit. This wasn't an inspection. Tonight, the HOA was coming for war. The first sound. It started with a hum. Low. Steady. Mechanical. Not a ranch sound. Not a farm sound. A city sound. Engines. Lots of them. Shadow lifted his head sharply. The herd shuffled nervously. Then I saw the lights. Not one truck. Not two. 7 black vehicles slowly crawling down the ridge like a pack of wolves. All without headlights. All moving in formation. All heading straight toward my land. My jaw clenched. There it is, I whispered. The big move. Shadow pawed at the dirt, snorting loudly. They want to take you, I said quietly. They want to break me. He stared at me with those wild eyes. And somehow, without words, he told me. Not tonight. The HOA's private army arrives. The truck stopped right outside my gate. Doors slammed open. Not board members. Not friendly faces. These were the same specialists from before. But now wearing black tactical vests labeled HOA Enforcement Unit. What kind of HOA has an enforcement unit? Rutherford stepped out last. Of course he did. He always saved his entrance for drama. Clipboard in hand. Hair perfect. Smile colder than barbed wire. Evening, he said, like we were about to play tennis. What the hell is this? I demanded. A lawful livestock removal operation, he answered calmly. Your animals are now classified as hazardous. You staged that classification. I documented what happened, he corrected with a smirk. And now we're here to fix the problem. By stealing my horses? He tilted his head. By relocating them. Shadow stomped the ground. Hard. The sound echoed across the field like a warning shot. The workers flinched. Rutherford didn't. He nodded at his team. Begin the containment. Containment. Not relocation. Not removal. Containment. This wasn't just procedure. This was warfare. The first charge. 2 men walked toward Shadow with long metal poles. Shadow lowered his head. Muscles tight. Breath sharp. I whispered, easy, don't move yet. But one worker made the mistake of sticking the pole too close to Shadow's face. Shadow snapped. He lunged forward, letting out a roar like neigh that wasn't fear. It was fury. The worker tripped backward, fell hard, and scrambled away like he'd seen a ghost. Rutherford exhaled through his nose, annoyed. See, he said. Hazardous behavior. I pointed at him. You push him. You scare him. You invade his land. You cause this. He ignored me. Bring the tranquilizer cradle, he ordered. I froze. Tranquilizer? They weren't here to move the horses. They were here to sedate them. Crate them. Take them. By force. My blood felt like fire. You sedate my horses, I growled, and I swear. He cut me off with a raised hand. Enough. Begin the operation. The moment everything turned. 3 of the specialists carried a large black crate toward the fence. Another worker held a tranquilizer launcher. Aimed. Ready. That was the moment. The moment something inside me snapped clean in half. I grabbed the old brass horn hanging on the gate. A ranch signal. Used only for emergencies. I lifted it to my mouth. Took a deep breath. And blew. The sound tore through the ranch like thunder. A deep, ancient call. The herd reacted instantly. Their heads rose. Their muscles tensed. Their hooves dug into the dirt. Rutherford's eyes widened. What was that? He demanded. I lowered the horn. That, I said, was the signal. For what? I smiled. For them. The wild horse stampede. Shadow reared up. Tall, powerful, furious. Then he charged. Not away. Toward them. And the herd followed him like a wave of thunder. Dozens of horses. Full speed. Dust clouds exploding behind them. The ground shook under my boots. The specialists froze. Rutherford screamed. Fall back. Fall back. Too late. The herd hit the perimeter like a storm god's army. Horses barreled between trucks. Jumped over equipment. Kicked down metal crates. Trampled fences like toothpicks. One worker dove behind a vehicle. Another sprinted up the hill. Two dropped their gear and ran straight for the road. Rutherford stood still, shaking, clutching his clipboard like it would save him. Shadow skidded to a stop right in front of Rutherford. Dust flying. Hooves inches away from Rutherford's legs. Breath hot on his face. Rutherford's whole body trembled. Shadow leaned closer, snorted aggressively, and stomped so hard the earth cracked. Rutherford screamed and fell backward onto the dirt. Clipboard flying. Papers everywhere. It was chaos. Pure, beautiful chaos. And for the first time, the HOA was afraid. The breaking point. When the dust settled, only 2 trucks remained. The rest were fleeing down the road like terrified roaches. Rutherford crawled backward on the ground, shaking. I walked over slowly. Calm. Cold. Done with being the nice rancher. I crouched beside him. You trespassed. You staged evidence. You threatened my home. You tried to steal my horses. He opened his mouth to speak, but all that came out was a weak. We had authorization. I leaned closer. Not anymore. I picked up his clipboard. Snapped it in half. Threw it on the ground. He flinched like I'd broken him, not the clipboard. He scrambled to his feet. This isn't over, he shouted. I stepped toward him. He stumbled backward. It's over when I say it's over, I said quietly. And I'm done playing by your HOA rules. He climbed into the truck, trembling. The remaining driver peeled out as fast as possible, fishtailing down the dirt road. Then they were gone. Silence returned. Real silence. Not fear silence. Not danger silence. The kind of silence that means victory. I turned to Shadow. He walked up to me slowly. And rested his head against my chest. A thank you. A promise. A bond. The herd gathered around us, warm and calm again. The ranch felt alive. Safe. Mine. The aftermath. It took 2 hours for the dust to settle. Literally and figuratively. Deputies arrived later, responding to disturbance calls from the HOA. But when they saw the footage from my security cameras, the trespassing, the illegal equipment, the tranquilizers, the aggression, the lies, they said the words I'd been waiting to hear. You're in the clear. And then, we'll deal with the HOA. I smiled. For the first time in months. The ranch felt free. The final question. I stood at the fence that night, shadow beside me, stars above, cool wind brushing across the fields. Thinking about everything we survived. Everything we fought. Everything they tried and failed to take. And I wondered, what would you have done? If an HOA tried to take your animals, your land, your peace, your home, would you fight back the same way? Or would you walk away? I really want to know.